How we doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I feel like progress is being made in life in small, tiny increments, but progress is progress. And yeah, I'm really excited to be actually catching up with you. As I
Yeah.
mentioned, it's been a minute and it feels like you're, as usual, where I want to be in like a year, 2 years, and like just the stuff that you're doing I'm just like, okay, it's time to learn. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, no, man, this is good stuff. I can't wait to talk about this, and also too for the people. This is our new channel, so if we're on smart contracts, Dan's been on our main channel before. Real quick, Dan, tell the good people a little bit about yourself.
Mhm.
If this is the first time they're watching on this channel.
Sure thing. So, hey, everyone, I am Dan Parry. I am the co founder of a customer research company that I started with my brother that does hyper targeted customer research for B2B businesses and charities. We've been doing it for like 5 years or so, and it's very good. And on the side, I am a no coder that builds apps, particularly in the mental health space, and I am really interested in the crypto space, not just the investing side or not only the investing side, which can feel crazy, but the actual creation and the technology behind it. And yeah, I've just been really just reading up on all the things and trying to understand it. And I studied computer science at university, basically failed, which is why I love no code. But now I'm getting into smart contracts. And now I opened up VS Code,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, what am I doing, mate? What am I doing? Like, I spent the whole of Saturday setting up in environments, and I was like, this is not how I want to be living my life. But you have to do uncomfortable things if you want to be
Yeah,
good.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah,
I
that's
love
me.
it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so this is going to be really fun. We're going to talk about all this stuff, and also I think this is you're I'm feeling your pain. Like what you're talking about, like the thing is when you're talking about smart contracts, and we'll go into like VS Code, all this stuff, and like build space, I find that most coders, when they're proficient and they're telling you what to do,
Mm,
they're forgetting what it's like when they first started. And
yeah.
so when they're just like go into the terminal and say
Mm,
install Y and all, and it's like, well, their computer's already set up to do those things,
yes.
you know,
And
so
and,
they
and,
don't
and
get the same errors.
I was saying that I've been spoiled by no code.
Yep.
Because like there was a time when I used to do code stuff and then I forgot about it because I hated myself. Then got into no code and it's like, oh, okay, cool. If you just want to build an app, just go log into the service that you're using and build the app.
Yeah.
And you press a button and then it goes and becomes public. You just can use it. Like cool. And now I'm like, and then it was like, oh, okay, go to terminal and then do stuff. And I was like, oh, like I'll give you a bit of a rundown as to like how terrible this experience was of me. Like, so it was like, okay, I was following some of the examples, the setting up stuff. Like, okay, cool. Just install hard hats, and we'll talk about what these things are. But I didn't know what hard hat was. But in order for me to install hard hat, I had to install the right version of like JavaScript. In order for me to get JavaScript, I had to do like I had to get Xcode. I didn't have enough space for Xcode on my computer, so I deleted all of my music just so I can install Xcode, just so I can install JavaScript, and I was just like, this is a lot.
Yep. Yep. That's so this is so funny that you mentioned this. I should have said this. So especially on this channel, the very first video was one of my friends that's a coder. It took me 2 hours to download everything before I could do the project.
Yeah.
So, so right here, this is the first attempt that when I was doing the smart contract, and it's walking through all of the things that went wrong trying to
Mm,
get this.
mm,
And so we'll definitely talk about this, but like that's exactly right. It's taken me 3 times to
mm,
finish this project because I just did not understand what was going on.
mm.
So that's huge. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And
Because
the other thing that was interesting is that because I'm not used to uh what do you call it, terminal, that like I know that you had to do things in like sequentially.
mm-hmm,
So like when I like refreshed, I had to like I was like, no, nothing's working. And I was like, oh no, because you have to do things in. Oh man. But it took me a whole day, and I did something. But like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to like having these chats and helping other people get through this stuff too, because I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, yeah. And even when like, and what I want to take away, once you get even the bare bones of this, it helps you to do even more crazy things in no code, I feel. Because
Yeah.
now you understand the methodology of how could I move faster doing these things, and it just flies. And I've doing this in coding, doing things with like I've been doing things with like Bolt SQL, doing things like with database and doing queries. I'm like going back to no code. I'm like, oh, you can do this and pull this and all those things. And I'm not sure if you saw this, and I'm not sure if you've messed with back end lists. Actually, the CEO got in my comment section and started trying to blast me, and I'm doing a whole like truth video about back end lists. But I kept asking him, he's like, you didn't say this, you didn't say that. I'm like, listen, bro, I didn't know he was the CEO. I just thought he was some random guy because he didn't identify himself. And I looked him up on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, you're the CEO. And I was like, but I said, are you a developer or are you a no coder? He wouldn't answer the question. He's like, the thing is, a lot of these developers, especially if they're low code or whatever, they're making huge assumptions about what people can and cannot do. And because they've been doing it for 10 or 15 years, they don't see this being a barrier. I wanted to say one thing. You probably won't believe it. So I'm working and doing this thing on Glide, right? And I was teaching a bunch of people how to use Glide. Dan, I'm not kidding you. 17% of the students, there was like maybe 250, whatever I was teaching, 17% anecdotally didn't know how to set up a Gmail account, and they're trying to use Glide.
Wow.
And they fundamentally, they're like, but is Gmail the same as Hotmail? I'm like, no. I had to create a 20-minute tutorial of how you set up a Gmail account. And people are like, that's the dumbest thing. If you look at the search volume of that on YouTube, it's actually pretty high. It's a couple million queries a month of how to set up a Gmail account.
Like, we're spoiled. Like, I think everyone is ahead of someone else. And everyone gets what it's like to not be like where they were, and all the things that you learn are compounded. So like you like, I spin up Gmail accounts just for jokes, but like if someone's never done it before, then it's like a whole So I get it. I completely understand. Like, if someone asked me how to set up a Hotmail account, like, I'd be able to do it, but I haven't done one in 100 years.
You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, Hotmail. I was like, oh, good God. Like, I haven't thought about Hotmail in like, I didn't know the servers will still. It's the same way, like, I see some with AOL.com. I'm like, good God. Like, you already know. Like, oh, you don't do things like online, really.
I feel people with AOL accounts are brave. So I'm like, that service can stop at any time. They're the bravest of us all.
I think they just like they were probably, if I could look at like the subsection, I also think a lot of that would be like if I look at a Venn diagram, a lot of ones that do heavy gambling that also have AOL accounts, like they're in the middle, they're crossing over. They're crossing over this.
It's just a circle.
I should just start. So, like, do you gamble? Yes. I'm like, of course you would gamble. Of course, your lifestyle shows this. I was gonna show you this thing. I'm gonna put it in chat. So I was gonna say, so Share Tribe Flex actually helped me a lot, because when you're doing Share Tribe Flex, you have to set up your local environment before you can use Share Tribe Flex. So earlier this year, I haven't been in the terminal in years. I'm talking about since when the App Store first opened. I was going to start doing some things, right? And so for me to, especially, and maybe I should preface this, especially with Mac, because a lot of people are using PCs and it's not the same thing at all. So I had to download Git, I had to download Node.js, I had to download Yarn to do all of these things, and to know even the right link to go to find these things still took another 45 minutes.
Nightmare scenario. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, yeah. I was blown away by like my lack of knowledge, because I thought I knew enough to be able to just at least get started and like, but I guess that's that thing that people talk about it, but we're still so early.
Yep.
We're still so early in all of this, in this whole space. So like there's going to be GUIs on top of all of this stuff that will let you be able to do all this stuff properly. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into this Notion doc that you've got.
Okay, good times. So what I wanted to talk about basically, so if you don't mind, I want to go kind of like step by step, but I want to make sure so I don't I go so deep and like, you're like, Doc, that's fantastic. You didn't answer any of my questions. Like you're like, what would success look like as we're going through this morning? What would look like success for you to understand or for you to get a grasp of as we go through this?
I think I've had a light overview of like and creating my first smart contract. I think the demo one that they've got on the platform, but I think getting a real understanding of like the step-by-step process that you took to be able to feel like confident doing it. You said you went through 3 projects. I guess the first one was probably more difficult than the last one. So just like a really like enough of steering so that I'm getting some terminology right, getting some understanding right of the things that I should be using and doing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really good. So the first thing that really screwed me up was just going into the terminal and downloading these 3 first. That was the first one. The next one was we were talking about it VS Code, downloading code, but also did you download the extension so it can the add-on for the Solidity contract one?
So I did. I spent like 30 minutes trying to figure out how to make it so that I could understand the stuff, and then I realized that you had to download the extension so that you could actually see the. Because I'm dyslexic. I think you are as well.
Yep.
So like so code is even more difficult at the best of times as well.
Okay, so I would like to say this too, because that's exactly right. When I look at code, especially, so it pisses me off when they kept saying like, you just got to look at it. Like you'll start noticing like the different, I'm like, no, I won't. Like I won't but the thing is, I'll talk about like how I had to take some massive naps. Like I'm not sure if this is normal, but when I learn a lot of things, if it's too much, I just have to sleep for like an hour after I do it and then come back to it. So like a lot of these sessions, I was only doing 45 minutes or an hour, and then I would just step away. I would take a walk. I would do something because it's too much if you're not used to it. It's just too much.
Yeah. And I feel like it's so far away from the stuff that I've been doing for the last year in terms of like visual development, like what you see is what you get stuff. That like doing this, where I was just like, I don't even know if it's working or not, or I'm seeing mad red things, but I don't know if that's fine or not. Like I don't know. And looking up and hunting things and going into like places on the internet that I've never been to before. So I get it.
You know, and so the first thing I would say is, okay. So, and I know, and it's first of all, when I kept seeing this, I'm like, this is scary stuff. Like, this is really scary stuff. Like, this is why I did not like coding at all. And so what actually helped me before going into VS Code, there is something called Replit. Have you gone into Replit yet?
No, I remember it from somewhere.
No worries.
About it, like I've never.
Okay. So Replit is very similar. I view it like it goes to like that one player mode to multiplayer. Like Word, like Microsoft Word is one player. Google Sheets and Google Docs, it's it's multiplayer. This is the same thing when you're writing code with Replit, and this really helped. But there's something that helped me in my previous project that I wanted to show you before I even started doing contracts that I thought was like super important. Number one, when you're bringing it up, it's going to be you're going to be running this. So once you have this, so let me back up. It is very similar to like something in GitHub or really anything. To me, it's like Google Sheets, where if someone has something live, you can just fork it. You can just grab it and say like, give me that stuff. And then you can just do whatever you want on this one.
Cool.
So once you find it, it will give you there's another page that I can go through it in a second. You'll just say fork, and then it will allow you to have it in your account as long as it's public. They can fork. And by the way, I didn't know I had one of my projects public like for 5 minutes, and someone saw it and just copied it over. Like it, I was like, oh. Hopefully I don't have anything like. Good thing I didn't have any of my like APIs in or anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there's a section where you can keep your stuff secret so they won't copy it over. But like, it was really disconcerting at first. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like, there's a guy that was on GitHub. He got his keys stolen, and like they took all of his money. They took all of his money because he had everything with his MetaMask wallet attached to it.
Oh wow.
And I think maybe 15 seconds. It was not long at all.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. And maybe this would help you. Or the thing is, I never, being in WordPress and being in other things, I had heard things like, hey, what's in public or what's in these files? But you know what? I'm not sure if it was for you, if you've seen this as well. They would just say like, don't touch those things. Like, don't touch them because you will destroy your site. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but like, okay, I just won't touch them. The pages right here will basically allow you. Now, this is like Next.js. This is like some of the coding right here where it says like app. This is like allowing you to see your app.js, but where it says index.js, this is literally the code on what you're seeing right here visually. So anything in the index is literally like right here. That's what it is. So if I'm seeing like now, like we're doing basics of coding, so like starting at the top, it would be starting what we see and then going down. But above here it says main entry. You import what you need. So it's to me in my head, it looks like, oh, before we can even run functions and actions, we need to first just say like, what are we importing? Like we're importing your CSS files. We're importing this. So in my head, and not everyone writes their like code this clean like this, but up here, it's telling me like, I'm going to be importing something in React. I'm going to be importing like the head. I'm going to be importing styles. So to me, it's almost just framing up what's happening. Now, like, why does this even matter? Because if you're writing a smart contract and you then need people to engage with your content, it needs to hook up to the front end. So you could do anything in VS Code or anything. If your front end doesn't know how to talk to it, it's not going to do anything. But what I found was the front end was a lot easier to understand before the back end. So that's why I'm like, I just need to know. And so this might be really simple, and someone might say this is easier, but to me, I'm gonna just be looking for things that I understand or something like that. And so right here where it's like I'm going down and I'm just looking for something familiar, I'm going to look for something that I can change. So you see where it says like add streamer? I'm just gonna say like test. And this is like HTML, and you can see it changed right there. And so now I know I'm in the right spot. That's the first like framework, because even going into these programs, like you're saying, going from no code and like visual, like this is just like, this is so much, man. Like this is so much. So that the first thing is like, I will say, doing the projects, I'm just like, go in and just start fooling around and seeing where you can understand and what you can't. To me, this was a revelation to me. Maybe this isn't to a lot of people, but I didn't understand that really this is just like a file system. So if I'm looking at this as a file system where it says pages and index, for all intents and purposes, if I'm trying to create a one-page site, the index is just a one-pager landing page. That's all it is. If I want to do anything with styles, I've got to tell it where to grab the styles, and that's going to be in my styling, in my CSS. And from here, if I want to change a style or something, I can literally just go in and like manually change out styles.
Mm.
But I go back to index, which is my main page, and I just got to go tell it like, go grab this style. So it's like style/home.module. So it's just telling like, oh, so it's saying home.module.css. It's this one. And so now to me, so now it's just, so right here, I never really understood coding. It's just saying like, we'll get into like how to type and have it, but it's just like, it helped me to understand like, it's not something too mystical. It's just like you were saying in the terminal, it's just dumb and you have to tell it everything. So you're like, I would like some font, please. Go get me some fonts. And then, then it does it. So that helped me to even get started. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think they, again, what we were saying is like we were spoiled in no code world, right? And it's like actually with code, it just does what you tell it to do. So that means you need to tell it to do all of the things. But that's what gives it its power.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the level of like why, like what I found really powerful, and that's why I'm going to like Next.js as well, like to learn, because like the apps.js and like, let me go into like, the like APIs here. Once you set up your APIs here, it basically builds all of the tunnels for you. It builds all of the conduits. So instead of me needing to be in Zapier or Integromat to like, it makes sense why a lot of developers are like, why would I ever use Integromat? Because this is what they're doing. They're just like, oh, I'll do that. And then I never had to pay for Integromat ever. I can see pros and cons. If I'm really like, if I don't want to mess with this, and like, I could spend a couple days screwing this up when I could just be in Integromat in like 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But this has helped me, and I'll show you in a second. Because of this project, I now know how to grab the API from OpenSea, and I'm going to start looking at all of the new drops that come out, so I know which NFTs to mint quicker.
Excellent.
You know what I'm saying? So like this one, I'm like, I'm doing this project. It's cool, but I'm like, no. I'm doing this because I'm about to make some money. But people aren't seeing it that way. You'll see like ones that get into the hype of NFTs and they're trying to follow everything. I'm like, really? Everything in Etherscan and OpenSea is open APIs. So it could just tell me when everyone's minting at the same time. And then I know I can go get on Etherscan. I don't even need to go to their website, and I could start minting it from my dashboard. Like, so that's why I'm like, there's a lot of things in build space, but I'm like, if you understand the concepts, now I can just apply it and get what I want. And no code's not there at that point where it's going to be able to let me plug in and do those things. It's there. Like I saw what was going on with Builder, and they're like, okay, we did that. But I'm like, number one, and you know, I'm like, Builder, why don't you just put out tutorials? Don't tell me about this, Drew. Don't tell me about, just release stuff. That's a whole other thing. But with build space, now it's easier to do these things, and you understand. So like, I'll go into this in like minting the NFT, which I actually think this is their best project that they've put out. This is Build Space's best project. The other two are extremely hard, and the first two courses they put out, they wouldn't give you the code. They would give you concepts, and they're like, think about this. We would love to see what you came up with. It. I'm like, Emma, I just learned this. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know how to think about what to code. So the first part, so the very first thing I would say is, number one, the biggest impact is knowing what to download, understanding how to use Replit first, and understanding that Replit allows you to have the front end to now connect to everything with your contracts that you're going to write. Before
so
I go on,
is that what you use to write your code?
VS Code or Replit?
Yeah. Do you use Replit to write your code?
For everything on the front end, yes. So you'll see, let me go back and I'll show you. NFT Marketplace. So this is where I'm like, bro, this is where it gets pretty crazy in a second. Let me run. So number one, you can just like fork their their Replit account. And let me show you this. How far did you get into the course?
So into the first, so it was the first one that I was doing, and it was, I think I managed to one day I'm going to see this whole thing green like you. I'm going to live my life, live my best life. I think it was just like I'm still in section 1 basically.
And it's for this one, for the minting NFT collection, or is it the smart contract one?
I think it was a smart contract one.
Okay. Let's okay. That one, you know what? I'm gonna show you it from this one and not the smart contract, because I think.
Do you think I should start with this one?
Is it okay?
Yeah. But do you think I should start with this one? Do you think I should?
I actually, you know what? Okay, so you watch anime, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you know what it's like? It's like Goku when he's wearing weighted vest and like he's getting into a fight and he's just like, let me just take this off. And they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
If you do the smart contract one first, when you get here, you're like, that's all we're doing over here? Like that's
okay, cool. Okay.
That's all we're doing. So
yeah.
I think it allowed me to go so much quicker in this one, hands down. It's a lot harder. I will say it is a lot harder at first, but you will then be able, it almost, because it's so hard, it reinforces, you're like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. Let me go into that one then. And this one, so I said it on Twitter too, this one, because before they wouldn't allow you, they kept shutting it off. If you didn't pass it in 2 weeks, it kept shutting it off. So if you look at it, I didn't finish this one. Like I was right there. I had 2 more assignments and then they shut it off. And I was like, I was mad. But now they changed the format, I think, because so many people complained. Because like I was like, I spent 2 weeks and then they wouldn't even give you access to it anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I got kind of bitter on that one. But okay. So let's go through, get your local Ethereum. Okay, so you're in this part right here, right?
I think it's to deploy locally I think is maybe where I got to. So like, still in the first one. Maybe it's like, I think it's compile contracts locally and run it. Like that's where I got to. Took me a whole day.
Oh yeah. All right, so let's talk about this real quick. Okay. So yeah, even like right here, I didn't even understand these terms before. Like I did, and so right here they take it for granted. But so making directories, I didn't even understand this because I'm so used to doing everything visually on a desktop. So you already know. So if I'm going back, do you want me to explain this, or you're like, Doc, like I've already done it?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay, so when you're going at first for the make directory, that's allowing you to basically make a folder on your computer. But then when it's saying CD change directory, it's telling you now have to tell the terminal to enter the folder. If you do not enter the folder, you can install all of these things, and when you go to run it, you'll get errors because what you ran was not where you put it into the directory. And so that's where I kept running into errors all the time, because I forgot that they're like, oh, just go back into the directory. I'm like, what? And so that was a big thing. So the biggest thing in hard hat, and this is another thing, if you get like the HH600, like if you get one where it's like not found, usually it's because you're not in the right directory. And it kept happening over and over to me. So I'm like, and I have it right here. Hold on. So I'm building this as well, that like 9 things that like I learned. So let me open this thing. Yeah. If you get an HH601, script doesn't exist, you're usually in the wrong directory. And so if you're seeing this and you're like, oh, I did it, that's what's going on. So when you're doing the install, you're installing the dev, you're installing all of those things. You're running yarn, by the way, right? So you're doing all this stuff, the Y right here. You're installing and saving developer hard hat, and then you're running it. So NPX, you're running it.
And you need to be in the right folder to run that.
Correct. So every single time.
That explains so much.
Yeah, and I'm going to show you real quick in the term. You know what? And also, like, no one said anything, like, because most devs, like, they just don't care. But I was like, when I was in the terminal the first time, I felt like a hacker. I was like,
Man,
I'm like, this is what's going on. I was like, man, this feels so good. I'm like, I understand it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And so when you're going into this real quick, number one, I didn't know this. If you press the up arrow, then you can see your past commands, which I wish I knew that. Because so if I go up arrow, you can see when the last time I was in my terminal what I was doing. And so that helped a lot. Okay. So if I'm in make directory scripts, it goes into that. If I say change directory, I'm going into that script. And then ls, that means I can like search. Let me just do ls. You see how ls, I can now search and see what's going on here. Where's my stuff? So now I can do like cd. So I'm going to change directory and I'm going to do my wave portal. Now it's saying my wave portal, Doc, you're in the wave portal. You're in that section. Now, if I want to see like, hey, what's in this? I can do pwd, okay? And I can see if there's anything in it. And that's like the beginning to understand. So if you get a lot of errors, I think someone's messaging. What is someone saying? Hey, Erica, good to see you. You're on this channel too, and you're going to be on the other channel later today. My goodness, you're everywhere. So yeah, this helps you to. So if you're getting errors and it's saying it can't run the script, it's an error. You're usually in the wrong directory.
That makes a lot of sense. That's
and so
already helpful.
And in my head, I didn't think about it. It's just so to me. I'm reading this book called Reach. I'm loving that book. Basically, it's generalists talking about like generalists can solve a lot of problems because they have to make analogies. They're so not steeped into a specialty. They have to relate to something to figure something out. And I feel like programming, there's not enough analogies when people are first getting started. And so to me, when I understand directories, I'm like, oh, it's literally like a file cabinet. You're opening it up. And if I'm saying like, this doesn't exist, I have to first check, like, am I in the right file cabinet and in the right folder?
Yeah.
That's all it is. And like, so that's when you're thinking about like that, I don't know, that just helped me. So that's the first one. So we have that. Then coming up, okay, we're installing more, right? And then you're saying, hey, run it. And it says, make sure everything is running, compile. Okay. And the reason it's compiling, this is one thing that like zooming out. This is something you have to compile it, then you have to deploy it to your local blockchain. Then afterwards you run it and you tell all the miners that are on the network, hey, I have a new contract, go pick it up. And so then you're using something on Alchemy and they're picking up your contract. So you have to first compile it. You have to do it locally. You're doing it locally on your machine. You're using VS Code to write your contract. And the thing is with a smart contract, once you write it once, it's good. Like it's not dynamic. So you have to, if you ever change a smart contract, you have to go back, compile it, redeploy it because the contract never changes. And that's what's so important because it's so secure. No one can screw it up. No one can go and mess with you.
Even
you.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And when you do this, when you run it, this is the whole thing. We'll get to it in a little bit. When you're using Alchemy, and when I'm telling my wife, she's just like, do you know what you sound like? I'm like, I'm in Alchemy. I'm on the Rinky buy. I'm buying this, Ethereum. She's just like, you sound crazy. But when you're using Alchemy, it allows your blockchain development to be sent to the miners. And when you're using a test network like Rinky buy allows you to use fake Ethereum. So your contract or whatever you want to do is good before you actually use real money.
So what's Alchemy again? Just
say it again. I'm sorry.
What's Alchemy again?
So Alchemy is, let me log in so this might make more sense.
Mm.
Let me do this. So let me go back. Really good question. So I'm going to switch over. So like, okay. So I have my smart contract over here, right?
Mhm.
This is, and it says like my Epic NFT. This is my contract right here.
Mm.
It's under my
Mm.
contracts. Okay. This is my run. So this makes sure it runs locally. Okay. But when it says deploy,
Mhm.
is now telling the network, I want you to go put my contract somewhere or mint my contract. Go do this thing, right?
Mm.
When it deploys, it then goes out to the network and the network has to pick it up. So that
Mm.
goes back into nodes and miners. So just
Mm.
because it says it on my account, I'm like, oh, my contract, whatever, people can engage with my smart contract. It doesn't mean anything if it's not on this Ethereum blockchain, or it
Mm.
doesn't mean anything if it's not on the blockchain because no one knows it's there. So
Mm.
then what happens is Alchemy is where it's saying create an app.
Mm.
I can name it and look in the environment. I
Mm.
can actually put it there in the chain and the network. It's
Mhm.
now going to talk to Alchemy and tell all the miners that are mining and making money.
Mm.
They're saying, yo, bro, like put this on chain right here.
Mm.
So instead of back in the day before Alchemy, I would actually have to set up my own node, my own system to allow
Mm.
people to know that I have a new smart contract.
Mm.
So this is, you know what? I imagine it similar to like, I'm in the middle of nowhere
Mm.
and I'm trying to wave down a taxi
Mm.
versus I have an app for, I have Uber or Lyft and I'm like, I'm
Mm.
right here, go pick me up.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
Alchemy does. They're like, oh, someone's on the network. There's all these drivers. They're like, oh, let's go
Mm.
pick this contract up.
Mm.
And that's what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. And so here you can see where it says like Rinky Buy, right? And it says
Mhm.
development. So here I'm telling it, hey, I'm working on something. It's in development.
Mm.
I need you to go put it on Rinky Buy. And the
Mm.
reason it's on Rinky Buy is it's the test network.
Mm.
It's not mainnet. Mainnet is
Mm.
main Ethereum. So if someone does my contract, it will now take real Ethereum. It will take real
Mm.
ETH versus
Mm.
Rinky Buy. I can experiment with fake ETH. I can add things to my wallet in Rinky
Mm.
Buy, all of those
Mm.
things to test out my contracts working
Mm.
correctly,
Mm.
that I'm exchanging the right amount of money, all of those
Mhm.
things.
Mm. Cool.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is yeah. This has been really helpful, man.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, and so that's so again, I'm really like the more you do it, I'm like, oh, and that's why I put it at the very top. Like, so
Mm.
all we're doing is first we got to compile it. We got to compile everything on our local machine, do whatever. Then we got to deploy it to our local blockchain. Then once it's there, then we've got to send it and run it.
Mm.
And the thing is right here, which is actually great, console logs tell you what you're doing right and wrong. So this is something I didn't realize. So when I was trying to run something, I'm like, I'm not sure if it's like working or everything. So this coder was like, bro, you need to go put some console logs. And I'm like, what in the world is console log? So can I zoom in? Okay. Oh, brilliant. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. Okay.
Mhm.
So you see where it says like the console log right here?
Mhm.
So if so it starts from top to bottom. So if I'm
Mm.
trying to run something locally and something doesn't work,
Mhm.
the console log will show up to the point of it's working and then something else.
Mm.
So where it says contract deployed, it's going to then tell me the contract name. If I run it and if that doesn't even work, I won't even get to this point for them to display it.
Yeah.
The next console log, so I didn't have these console logs first, and he's like,
Mm.
go put these console logs so we can see if something's messing up, it won't show. And so if you look at it, I just said calling the function beep bop boop. So you can write whatever you want there, but it doesn't fire if you don't even get to that point.
Yeah.
And
There's
so I'm like,
literally, I'm actually having this similar issue with Bubble at the moment, where like an API that I'm trying to run is meant to work and it's just not working. I'm like, okay, I don't know where it stopped working. So like, actually, I need to create these text things just so I can be like, okay, well, if it didn't even do this, then I know that I've messed up somewhere.
Exactly. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know. I'm like, console log, I didn't even so they're so powerful. Before I'm just like, I don't want to add these things. I don't know how to do it. But this
Mm,
saved me because at first it just stopped here. And I was like, bro, it's
mm,
not minting. Then
mm,
I did the console logs. Then it got it right off the bat.
mm. Awesome. Thank you.
So that's the power of like, even if like, hey, you can put console logs after each one. So, and
Mm,
what I like about their stuff is in build space, not everyone does this. You see where it says like mint another NFT for fun. They
mm,
they do these so it tells you why you're there, which I
mm,
really like. Not every coder will do that. Like they're
mm,
telling you like what's going on, why are you having this. Now, there is something right here which I'll show you in a second, but like right here, this is where I'm actually building dynamic SFGs, because
mm,
right here it's picking random names from 3 different strings, and then it's
mm.
actually minting random combinations for my
Mm.
NFTs when I mint them.
Okay. So similar to the Loop project stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So right here, I'm just like, I
Yeah.
put this in, and then it's just picking randomly of the 3 sections. So you can
Yeah.
have this. There's other people. I'm not as skilled as this, so I don't
Mm,
ask me yet because I haven't learned. But like, you can change the image, you could change the
mm,
color. So then when you
mm,
input it, every NFT's great. I'm gonna make 10,000. Guess what? It makes all
mm,
those combinations based on
mm,
what's going on.
mm. Yeah. Awesome. This is exactly the kind of thing that I want to be doing.
Cool. And so that's the power. Even if I was telling like, me and people at Builder, they don't really talk to me anymore. But even I kept trying to tell them like, I'm not hating on this, but I think there's layers that you can show people who would benefit from this, because Drew's a dev, Gil's a dev. Like
Mm,
they know how to do it, but look at how no coders could use it or what they want to use, all those things. So that's the basics of like just getting started, but
mm.
hopefully just that concept. Did that help going through
Yeah.
just those things?
Absolutely. Yeah, it really did. Really did. Yeah, like I've got a better understanding, and I feel a little bit closer to, um, like, feel a little bit more confident. I think because realizing that it wasn't just me. Like it's because I guess when you go into a situation where that's difficult, it's like, is this a difficult situation or am I not good at stuff? And I think it's like both, which is comforting.
That's it. That's it. And like, honestly, I tell you, so, and what I did was the coder, like my friend, every single time I just documented like, what
Mm,
was I having? And by the way, I had problems with installing Hard Hat the second time where we had to do
mm,
a manual install. So like, even though I did it on 2 projects, I still had
mm,
errors, and it was an error that they had never seen in build space. And then we had to
mm,
document it. So like,
mm.
there's a lot of things that could be changing. And,
Yeah,
like, and I'll send you this document, like getting money
please.
for the test net.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please
I'm going to
do.
send you
Like,
all
I
this.
know this will be so sick. Yeah.
And then
Man,
right
but
here,
yeah.
you can see it in real time. Like I write out all my notes of like, how did I get stuck? What am I doing
Mm,
here? Like,
mm,
okay, I got success here. Like, because number one, if I'm putting this much energy, I never want to be like this again. I
yeah.
want to know what went wrong. So the best way is updating all my errors and
Mm,
remembering, or at least having somewhere to start. I had problems with this,
mm.
and now I know where to go.
That's a really good way of doing it. I am going to try and do the same things just to help me understand like where I'm going wrong and right. I think as well.
Yeah, I mean, and after doing this, I could see I'm like, man, you know what? After doing this, maybe I will go back to Bubble. Maybe. But on the next side, I'm like, I'm doing all this stuff. I might just go deeper into Next.js and just do what I
Mm,
want.
mm.
I don't know yet. I don't know.
I think my thing is that like the future is a blend between code and no code. Like Sarko talks
Yep.
about it a lot, which is like no code is the gateway drug to code. Like that, being able to do both things is going to be so useful and helpful. Like it's a moot argument to have the argument of no code versus code when the real winners are going to be people who can do both.
It's true, because it's like the coder, they've got to spend more time. If you know just a handful of no code tools, if
Mm,
you want to do mock-ups, whatever, you can move
mm,
so much quicker. Like you can go back and really do it in code, but like I can move all like the main thing once I figure out what I need to do. I'm probably going to go into Integromat or something like that just to speed it up. I might go back later on once I perfect it and hard code it. But to do all the other things, I'm like, no, now I'm ready for that. So yeah, dude. Precisely. So I know we're wrapping up, but what I'll do is we'll debrief. So everyone that's watching, hopefully you enjoyed it. There is in the comment section down below if this was helpful, if you want to see more things. Again, the whole channel is about Web3 and smart contracts and building out. So if you like this, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. And if you like no code, remember, we're on the regular Doc Williams channel. We'll be doing all this. And we're with Chris Scelzi today with how you can start making money on AppSumo. There are, I think, the first 10,000 new people, they're giving them $275 just to list on their site. So I'm just like, that's free money. That's free money. So we'll be talking about that.
My favorite type of money.
I love it. That's exactly right. Dan, before we go, where can the good people find you at?
Yeah, sure. So the business, Tectonic, the hyper-targeted customer research company, is Tectonic London, www.tectoniclondon.com. And then you can find me on Twitter personally at Yodan Parry, and that's YODANPARRY. And hopefully I'll be back on this show repeatedly and getting Doc's help and helping you all create some smart contracts and get that ETH.
There we go. There we go. All right, good times, everybody. Dan, hold tight real quick. Everyone else, you'll see me at the top of the hour on the other channel. We'll be with Chris then. All right, everybody. See you on the other channel. Good night.